quilt, it has to do me double duty.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's either a sample or a kit, or it's something that's going to end up being that I'll be able to use later on. So that's always like in the back of my mind, like, oh, I really love to do this, but it doesn't really fit with anything that I'm working on. So they become bucket list items.
Yeah. Do you feel like in terms of what you do and what you create, you have to fit it into a particular brand, or you're sort of who you are? Or do you feel that you can kind of experiment the way you were experimenting in the 5-year project? Do you feel like that's gone away, or do you feel like you still can do experimenting in terms of on the business, you know, because you're now a business?
The experimenting still goes on. The great thing about, so my business is basically in 3 parts. So I have a merchandise line, and I have my heirloom sewing projects, and I have my e-textile projects. And so they do go down usually one of those 3 routes. And mostly it's the heirloom sewing that there's the most experimentation with. And is the stuff that I love all of it, but the stuff that really gets me up and going is the heirloom sewing.
So tell me a little bit about that. Yeah. So explain what that is in case someone listening doesn't know what that is.
Well, I think when, heirloom sewing, people think Martha Pullen. So they think of fine garment sewing that is usually meant to create an heirloom garment that is to be passed down year after year. So think christening gowns and little girls' clothing, and
right.
And so when you think of those techniques, you're thinking of pin tucks, pleats, gathers, smocking, those kinds of fabric manipulation techniques that make fine garments. And I love texture in a quilt, and I love texture in a quilt that is not just created by the quilting, because quilting itself creates a texture, but like real dimensional off the surface, like raised up 3D type manipulations. So gathering and pleats and all sorts of stuff like that, where you can really raise the surface of your quilt, that stuff is really like super awesome to me.
That's really cool.
But they're techniques that are hundreds, if not thousands of years old. I mean, these are techniques that women have been using to make their garments pretty for years. They're not anything that, I did not invent a pleat. I did not invent smocking, but I am the one who's putting it into my quilt. And I'm not the only one. There are other people who, do pleats and tucks and all sorts of cool stuff. So, but I'm the one who's trying to make it cool.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I love it. That's really cool.
And I love that it's like something from the past that's all new again, and making it modern and making it so that it's accessible to people who would not have been exposed, just like I never had like true exposure to it, through a family member or anything. And so I'm trying to do it through the methods that people today use, which is the internet and my blog and teaching it and all of that. So, yeah.
That's very cool.
So heirloom sewing is really one of the main focuses of my business. And so I have created a smocking template. So it's an acrylic ruler that helps you line up your lines that you use to do your smocking stitches on the back side of your fabric. And so I invented this template.
That's really cool. I'm looking at it right now. It's really cool.
And I'm really, it's really a way for you to make that smocking technique. And then there's all these different patterns that you can put into your design that gives you different patterns on the front of the fabric. So it's really, it's sort of an interesting, way of just how you arrange the stitches, that you get the different, patterns on the front. But once you learn the technique, you can do like, this infinite number of patterns just with this one template.
That's really
And
cool.
because I'm a person who doesn't like to just have a tool that only does one thing, when I teach my classes, I also teach you how to do pleats with
Oh, that's
the,
very cool.
yeah. So I love that stuff. I love making heirloom sewing hip and cool, and, you know, making it a little more mainstream than it
Yeah,
is
that's
right
really
now.
cool. So what was it like to be making a tool? Was that the first tool that you've made before, the smocking tool? And so did you have any, like, how did you go about getting it manufactured and designing it and figuring out how you wanted it to be done?
Well, it was funny. I was like, there has to be a thing just like this out in the world that I'll repurpose for smocking, right? And so I
Right.
went on this huge hunt to find some kind of slotted ruler. And there is a slotted ruler made for your rotary cutter, but it's the width of a rotary cutter blade, so it's
Right.
very tiny. And
Right.
I needed to be able to put a pen, like a marking pen or a pencil through that line, so that ruler wasn't going to work. And then I thought maybe in the calligraphy world, there would be some sort of ruler that they use to like put lines on a pattern paper so that they could do calligraphy
Mm-hmm.
that would be about the width that I was looking for, and I couldn't find anything.
That's really
And
interesting.
so I drew it up, and there's a local guy who's had a laser cutter, and he did acrylic templates. And I said, could you make something like this? And we went back and forth on the prototype a couple times. And then next thing you know, we had one that worked. And I was
That's really
sort of in a
cool.
rush because I was going to go and record how to do heirloom sewing techniques on a DVD for Interweave, which is now F&W Media. And they had wanted me to come and do an hour-long DVD. And on this smocking chapter, I was like, what am I going to do I can't just show people to take a ruler and do this with a pen. It would take forever to show that part. I need something quicker because I wanted to do, and it was for me too. I make everything that I sell. Everything I sell is for me.
Mm-hmm.
That also just happens to be for somebody else.
Yeah, that's
Like,
cool.
and so that template really was for me to be able to draw all these samples quickly. And then I realized, why don't I just make this and sell this alongside my DVD? And so it just sort of happened that way.
It's very cool. It's amazing. It's like when you look at sort of what it can do, it's kind of remarkable that it's that this tool can allow you to help you to figure out how to do all of that. That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, what about your branding? So you're super good at branding and you're super good at social media. So you're the sewing skull. How did that happen? And your bangs, how did that happen? Because like
Oh
you've
gosh.
really like
Yeah.
developed a thing, and that's not unusual, but like it's awesome. It's super smart. So how did that happen? Those two things.
So the sewing skull, no lie, I was on a conference call at work, drew this in the border of my lined note paper, drew the skull and the needle and the whole thing. And as soon as I finished sort of sketching it and half listening to this, conference call, I thought, I want that on a t-shirt and I would wear that.
It's
And
really
so
cool.
again, because it was something for me, I took the drawing home, cleaned it up, put it into Photoshop, and sent it off to a printer to say, could you make me one of these? And as soon as I started wearing it, I had literally gotten like a one-off. I really was just like, it was just for me.
Uh-huh.
And then people were like, where'd you get that? Where can I buy that?
Totally.
And then you're like, uh-oh, I think
Right.
I'm developing a business here.
Right.
So, you know,
That's really
at this
great.
point now I'm selling like the e-textile kits, I'm selling the templates, and now I'm selling t-shirts.
That's
And
so great.
so basically, yeah, the sewing skull has turned into its own little brand. And,
Right.
when you start wearing that stuff, and you know, every time you see me, I have one of those skull shirts on.
Right.
It really does become like people start giving you stuff. It's like the movie Julie and Julia,
Yeah.
where
Right.
people started sending her food and, you know, hot sauces and stuff. People send me skull stuff all the time.
Really?
And yeah, if you are associated with something, make sure it's something you really like.
Yeah, it's true. It's
Because
very true. Because then, like, that's what you're known for. That's so
you
great.
are known for it. Yeah, and
Right.
I love it. So don't
Yeah.
get me wrong. Like, Halloween's my favorite. I have a whole
Right.
room in my house that's Halloween year round. So
That's really great.
there's no shortage of skulls around here.
Well, and do you
So
think that because of sort of who you are and sort of how you're branded, that it also allows people in that may think that it's only for, like, you know, people in their 50s and 60s, that it's a new generation, kind of more exploratory, kind of, it opens up sort of who wants to quilt and sew? Do you think that part of your brand helps with that?
yeah, I definitely think that, the whole, like, my whole look, my whole brand that I
Mhm.
have developed is about making quilting accessible to younger quilters.
Yeah.
I'm now 20 years in the industry, or 20 years in quilting,
Yeah.
almost 10 years in the industry. And I want it to be okay that, if you want to wear a skull on your shirt and say that, I'm a rock and roll quilter and
Yeah.
I'm not your typical quilter, I love that. I think
Yeah.
that that's totally great. I think there's more and more of us who are embracing that. And I think that, it does open a door,
That's
so to
awesome.
speak, to say that you can be of the alternative or whatever you want to call it, but just that whole mindset doesn't have to be so stuffy.
No, it doesn't.
I just, like I said, I like to make stuff cool. And
Yeah.
so,
I think it's great.
and like
I think it's amazing.
the bangs sort of came out of being on television, and I had cut my hair into this like sort of retro, Betty bang. It's called the Betty bang.
Hmm.
And it's like the Betty Page style bangs. And so I did the haircut, and then at the very first quilt show I was at after the shows started to air, people instantly recognized me, and I thought,
Yeah.
well, there goes. I'm never
There's
going to be able to change that again.
you're never gonna change your shirt or your bangs. Like, you're just, no,
That's
that's for
right.
sure. That's very funny. I like it.
Yeah.
That's
My
really great.
my poor closet is like half t-shirts.
That's funny.
So, yeah.
That's great. Well, yes, you're definitely easy to find, and that's really important with a brand. So, you
It
know,
is.
that's
Yeah.
really important, hugely important. Well, so we are going, this is the beginning of this project, and I would love for you to be part of it in any way that you want. I am doing your 31-day blog thing for this, and
Yes.
oh my gosh, it's good. I think I don't know if I posted yesterday's, because then I was like, well, can I cheat and put it on the day yesterday? I don't know. I don't know. The more you made some sort of moral choices in my life that aren't good. So, but it does make me laugh. Um, but
It's not a race, and it's not, if you skip a day, it's fine.
yeah,
The idea is that you're just doing something so that you get in a habit, and whether or not you know that you're not going to be able to blog tomorrow, so you
yeah,
have to do a little pre-planning.
yeah,
Those are skills that help you, no matter what, down
yeah,
the road,
totally.
when you're running your business. So
Well,
yeah, I love the 31-day blog challenge.
yes, well, I would love to interview some of those people, or maybe you and I can, or you can, because there are a lot of really, I've looked at all the different websites, and it's just a whole different, like, it runs the gamut, and it's really interesting to see. And I
Oh
suspect,
yeah, they're all over the place. Yeah, I
yeah,
love it.
and I imagine they come from your teaching and sort of who you are and sort of how you, or friends and others. And so it'd be fun to sort of highlight some of what they're doing and who they are, because I do think it sort of cuts across a lot of different aspects of what people are doing with quilting.
Oh yeah, yeah. And it was funny, I had posted, that I only posted this challenge on Facebook in a couple of places. One was